she just started questioning me with a lot of things. So the sort of questions that she asked: how was I trained? How was I making sure that I was as competent as the male counterparts? So she was basically very, very insecure about having me as a women trek leader, and having a woman leading such a big group.
From Unboxing Stories, this is Himalayan Diaries. I'm your host Ojas. In our last episode, we were listening to Swarada. Today we continue our conversation with her, where she unboxes more stories from her Himalayan diary, talking about the challenges in trek leading and life lessons that trekking teaches us. In the journey, like throughout your journey as a trek leader, what are the challenges? Not just you, but what are the challenges that a trek leader goes through?
I think I'll have a list of challenges, but many of them, I think, to divide them in terms of professionally and personally. Professionally, it becomes really difficult to establish yourself as the trek leader uh, with your team, your own team. And when I say team, it's the team of local guides, local kitchen staff, the mule person who will be coming along, because you are the leader of that team also. You're not just a leader of the trekkers who come on that trek, but you are basically the single person who is responsible for anything and everything that happens on a trek. You are the only one who is responsible for it. So you are also the leader of that local team of people. And for them, especially so for them to trust somebody who is coming from the cities, and having them, so having the trek leader tell the local people to do a certain things in a certain way, they feel, oh, ye to hamare ilake mein aake they are telling us to do, what not to do. And they are basically trying to overpower me if they feel that way. And especially being a woman, they feel it even more because they are not trained to take orders from women. And it becomes very difficult to establish ourselves as tech leader, as the leader of their team. So I think that was a challenge. And I think whoever joins as a trek leader, they have to go through this phase where they have to establish themselves. Second would be to have that credibility in the trekkers, within the trekkers. I have a story to share. I very vividly remember this incident from Biaskun trek. And it was, I think, during my initial time of as a trek leader, and it was during the monsoon season. I was leading a doctor special trek. So whoever came as trekkers, all of them were doctors. And when I did my initial introduction, so for Manali treks, so Biaskund is in Manali, and for Manali treks, we don't usually have a base camp. So now we have built one, so now trekkers come there. But at that time, we did not have that. So we would just meet our trekkers and then go on a trek. And on the first day of the trek, we would have a long briefing session. But during the first day, we wouldn't. So I very clearly remember, as I introduced myself as the trek leader, this one lady, Dr. Anita, she just started questioning me with a lot of insecurities and a lot of things. So the sort of questions that she asked me were related to, if I was how was I trained? How was I making sure that I was as competent as the male counterparts? So basically, male trek leaders. She started questioning me on my fitness level. She asked if I was really trained well so that I could manage any sorts of disasters or whatever emergencies that would happen on a trek. So she was basically very, very insecure about having me as a women trek leader, and having a woman leading such a big group, especially in the Himalayas. And then she was expressing how she has never really believed or haven't really seen successful women leaders, and how she had that mindset that women can't be as good as men when it comes to leading. not just in terms of treks, but in terms of everything. So be it a leadership position in anything. So there was a huge gender bias that she was having.
Despite
Um,
she
and
being a woman.
despite she being a woman and being a doctor.
Yeah.
So it was very disheartening to see uh, a woman doubting another woman's capabilities. But I just had to deal with it, and I decided not to overreact or even react for that matter. I decided to stay calm, and I assured that I was competent enough to handle anything that could go wrong on a trek, and that I was very well trained for it, and that she didn't have to worry about anything. So I remained calm. I refrained myself from sharing all the success stories of other women trek leaders and just sharing the best parts or the events that could really make her believe that women are as good as men when it comes to leading. So I refrained from doing all of that. I just decided to stay calm and I continued with the trek. And fortunately, unfortunately, on that trek, we happened to face a major weather crisis. So the weather went really bad. It was monsoon season. So on that particular trek, we faced the worst weather during that particular season. So it was raining cats and dogs. Then later it turned into snowfall. The rivers were flooded. It became difficult to cross the rivers. And in the night, I remember actually cleaning up all the tents. It For those who haven't been on treks, probably difficult to imagine what it is to clean tents in the night. But even you are freezing as a trek leader, but you have to go and sort of shake the tents and take off all the snow from the tents so that they don't collapse, and you have to stay up in the middle of the night to go help trekkers, whoever is in need. So I did all of that while communicating and coordinating with my own team of kitchen staff, mules and mule person and guides, and even the base camp team. So a lot of things, and we eventually completed the trek. But I had to manage a lot of things in that crisis, and the trekkers could also see how everything was happening. So when we completed the trek and we reached the summit, we came back, and we usually have a debriefing at the end of the trek when everybody shares their experiences. And when we were having our debriefing, Anita, she just broke down, and she was just expressing how her mindset had completely changed, and how her views about having women as leader were shattered. And I was taken aback while listening to her story, because she was stating how in her own life she has seen so many women not being able to as not being or sort of she has experienced that women can't be as good as men. But here she saw the opposite, or she could not the opposite, but she could just see how even a woman can handle so many things in a crisis. And that had really impacted her so much that she was sharing all of this in front of everybody and just crying. And that is when I thought, oh, with just by leading a trek or doing my job right, I can really change mindset of people, and something that is going to impact their lives and people around them, their lives, for such a long time. And coincidentally, a year later, I met Anita again on Gomukh Tapovan trek. I was leading other group. She was part of some other group, and then we were crossing each other. And that is when we met. And then she came in and then she hugged me. And then we sat by the river. And then she was sharing her stories about how she herself had taken up a leadership role in her area of work.
Wow.
And then she was sharing how that trek had impacted her so much that her perception and her perspective about so many things had changed. And I was just thinking how lucky I have been to be able to be a part of that change. And this is exactly why I wanted to be a trek leader, right? So I was very grateful, and I was very very happy. And the sort of satisfaction that I got after knowing her story, or after having gone through all of that, I just felt very grateful, because that satisfaction is something that I was always looking for. And I really wanted to change things through my action, and I could do that. So it was wonderful. So these were the sorts of rewards that you would get as a trek leader.
Hmm.
It was not going on treks every week, because many people
Okay.
consider it to
Mhm.
be, many people consider the tech leader's job to be very glamorous, because you get to go on treks every other week. But
Mhm.
after a while, it gets repetitive. You might have to do the same trek again and again for, say, 15 times. I have done the Ara Bugyal for 18 times.
Wow.
And but in different seasons, and it looks different every time you go. But
Mhm.
one might get bored of doing that. So
Mhm.
it's much more than that. It's not just going on those treks that is rewarding, but stories like these and being part of all of this is much more rewarding. So that is when people, when they say about how trek leading is such a rewarding job, this is what they mean by it. It is
Mhm.
not just about witnessing those beautiful sceneries, but also these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So,
of course, so coming back to your question about challenges as a tech leader, I think professionally, definitely gaining that credibility in terms of in terms with your own staff team, and then with your trekkers. Uh, and so these are the professional challenges that you might have. And also working for 24/7. Anytime you would have to go and do a certain task and just be present there. So it's not a 9 to 5 job. You have to be attentive, you have to be there uh, for it full time. So it's not that you come back from a trek and then you chill at the base camp. It's not like that. If
mhm.
somebody needs help up there on the trek, you might have to be, you might have to go right on the next day that you come back from a trek, or sometimes even on the same day that you come back from a trek, you might have to go up and help them out.
Mhm.
And the case might be anything. You might have to be part of an evacuation, or you might just have to get a trekker down because they are not feeling well, or you might have to just go up to help them clear the snow and clear the path so that they can complete their trek. So it could be anything, but you have to be there for that. And as a trek leader, though, you have to be there 24/7, because even on treks, if anything happens in the midnight, you have to be present. And you are the single person who is responsible for anything that happens. And then personally, of course, as you said, I was homesick at the beginning. But also, um, it becomes difficult because when you are on the slopes, you don't really have a social life, because everything that happens is around your colleagues. And sometimes those colleagues are not even from cities, they are people from the mountains, they are billet staff, and you are staying with them day and night,
Yeah.
and you have to chill with them, you have to work with them, you have to do all the sort of time pass with them. So they are your go-to people, so your social life is limited to that, unless you take a holiday and go down to Dehradun or Rishikesh, and then have your own time, or even go to your own cities during your holidays. But otherwise, that is it. So it's very, in that manner, it is very, very different. Here, if even if when I was doing my job at HSBC, I would come back and do whatever I wanted to, and nobody would care what I was doing. But over there, every single action has a consequence.
Mhm.
So I think that gets difficult after a while. Initially, it's fine, but later it becomes difficult. Um, it might become difficult if you are not planning your vacations well. And in terms of weather conditions and extreme weather conditions and all the uncertainties that revolve around this job, I think that also becomes quite difficult, because you have to survive in negative temperatures even when you're at the base camp, not just on the treks. Even
Mhm.
when you're at the base camp, I remember I was at Rethel, which is the base camp of the Arab Bugyar, where I've spent most of my time when I was at India Hike. It was during when we had opened a new base camp for the Arab Bugyal. Earlier, we used to stay at GMVN, and then next time, I think in a few months that I joined, we opened a new campus. It was right next to GMBN, but over there we had our big tents. So we had those Swiss tents, and we did not really have cemented structure or rooms, anything there where we could live. So every day we had to stay in those tents and we had to survive those negative temperatures. At that time, we did not even have heaters. We did not have any way to make sure that we are warm throughout the night, except for having blankets and sleeping bags. So doing that for consecutive days for months becomes very difficult. We are not used to that sort of extreme weather. Going as a trekker is fine. You do that only for 6 days, you come back and you're fine. And I remember even when I used to go as a trekker, I would start missing my blanket at home and I would start missing all that cozy things I make sure I use at home to make myself feel good. Or I would start missing ghar ka khana or whatever in just those 5-6 days. But here, as a trek leader, you're there. You're always there, and that itself becomes your life. So that also becomes difficult after a while, and it is definitely challenging. It's not just in the winter season, but even in the other seasons. So extreme temperatures, extreme weather conditions, uncertainties. I remember I was assigned when I initially joined and I started trek leading from the base of Rethel for the Ara Bugyal treks. After completing 3 treks, I got a call from my manager saying that you have to leave tomorrow for Kedar Kantha. Your next group is there. So initially it wasn't assigned. Initially I was supposed to be in the Ara Bugyal itself. So I got a call from her in the evening that tomorrow morning, early morning, you have to leave. And I was preparing for my group in the Ara Bugyal itself. So I had no idea that something like this was happening. I said, okay, fine. So I packed my bags and I left. I reached Uttarkashi and then I took a bus for Purola to go to Kedar Kantha. And as soon as I took the bus, I think right after an hour or so, I received a call from my slope manager from the Ara Bugyal. He called and he said, have you got in the bus? I said, yes. He said, get down, get off the bus. So what? Why? He's like, you have a group here coming today. So the group is coming today and you have to lead the group here in the Ara Bugyal. And I was so clueless. I was thinking, what? I just left today morning and I am already in the bus now. I'll have to get off somewhere and then from there somehow I have to manage and then come to the base camp. And then my group is also coming today itself. How is this happening? Why is this happening? But I think this is just one of a situation. But so many uncertainties like that. They just make you initially it's very exciting, very adventurous, and I'm sure I think for a lot of people it is very exciting even till the end of it. But for me, I think that started even getting a little bit difficult by the end of my career. I think those uncertainties become very, very challenging because you have a certain things in your mind. But I also learned to deal with it honestly because I'm a person who wants to have things planned. I should know what I am doing, where I am going on a particular day. But I had to change that mindset. I had to change that attitude, and I had to become much more flexible to take up things at any point and at any moment. So I learned to do that, but that also gets challenging after a while.
I want to know how the shift happened from Sahyadris to Himalayas. Like, what was your first memory, or I would say the first impression of the Himalayan range that you had?
I think my first ever Himalayan trek was when I was in 9th standard or 8th standard. I don't remember exactly. But me and my family and family friends, so my parents' friends and then their kids. So we had a big group and we all went to this place. I don't even remember the name of this trek. It's a very odd name. I think it was Shirgan Tungu. So Shirgan Tungu is a peak, and then you reach till the base. That itself is a trek. So we went to Shirgan Tungu base camp. So that was our trek. It's near Manali. So it's around Manali. So in Himachal region. That was my first trek. That shift was actually, it was quite intimidating. I think whoever has gone to Himalayas I'm sure would have at least for a moment felt the mountains, and because they are so massive and they are so huge, I'm sure they would have felt a little bit overwhelmed or intimidated by the mountains. I remember having this feeling even on Hamta Pass trek. On the first day that you go to
Mhm.
Jobra, uh, you have right on the left side of yours, you have those big mountains. And every time I went there, I went to Hamta Pass for 6 times. And every time I went there, I had this very disturbing feeling where I thought, oh, damn, I'm so small. And what if something happens? Usually, I never used to get these feelings, even
Mhm.
when I was in Himalayas. But this specific feeling that I remember having it even on my very first trek in the Himalayas. Because compared to Sahyadris, they are much huge and magnificent and massive, and suddenly you feel that you're quite small and you don't have the power to do anything, and all those sorts of feeling. And I'm sure that I wasn't able to articulate these feelings when, because I was so young at that time. But looking back at it now, I think I definitely felt this difference. But apart from that, talking about the good things that I felt about Himalayas, I immediately, as we came back, I wanted to go back and I wanted to do another trek. Because whatever I experienced, it was just out of the world. Experiencing snow for the very first time, or continuously hiking for 6 days. That itself was a big thing. In Sahyadris, you don't really often get to do that unless you do 2, 3 treks together and combine all of them.
Mhm.
But even then, you keep climbing and climbing down. So that is something that you do here. But over there, you just keep climbing up, and you do that for 6 days straight. And then stay in the tents for 6 days, do everything in the outdoors for 6 days. So that was very unique, and that was very different. And then to be able to do all of that with my family and my friends, that was even more special. So it
Mhm.
was a lot of fun, lot of fun.
I have read exactly this point somewhere that mountains or even oceans make you more humble when you notice them or witness them, because that is the point you realize that, as you mentioned, you are so insignificant in front of the nature. There's, I mean, w- what can you do if something happens, or like not even just in a bad way, but even in a
Yeah.
positive way as well. Like there is so much more than you to this in
Absolutely.
this world.
Yeah, absolutely. And that even happens when you look at the sky, the night
Mhm.
sky, and when it is filled with stars, and then you're just lying down and looking at the sky, the same feeling comes. So I think absolutely, ocean, mountains, and night sky. I think they
Yeah.
just make you feel so small, and even your worries so small and insignificant. You're like, okay, हाँ ये problem था, कोई बात नहीं, हो
Mhm.
जाएगा.
Yeah.
That sort of feeling.
Yeah. After those experiences or the feelings that you mentioned, how did you move in the direction of taking trekking as a career or getting into trek leading?
So as I said, that I was contemplating what I really wanted to do as part of my career. Because when I did not enjoy my work as a software engineer, I sort of started introspecting as to what I really wanted from the sort of work that I will be doing. I really started questioning what are the things that I look forward to doing as part of my work. And I think that is when the COVID hit. So we had lockdown and then everybody was home. And that just gave me more time to reflect and introspect about what is it that I really wanted out of my work. And because work is something that takes up almost what more than half of your life, because every day you go and come back and you barely get Saturday and Sunday for yourself. So I really wanted it to be meaningful and something that I would really enjoy doing rather than just getting paid really well. During that introspection and that reflection, I thought I read a lot of things, I attended a few courses, and through that, I eventually realized what is it that I really look forward to. So I came to 3 points. One is definitely where a place which would help me either hone my skills that I already have or help me gain new skills. So that was the first thing. Second was, it would be something that would pay me well so that I can have that financial freedom. Third would be being a part of something that has a larger social impact. So I wanted to do something through which I could create a social impact. So these were the three things that I wanted to be definitely part of my work. And then if I had the perfect intersection of all these three, I think that would be the ideal thing to do. But that is when I started to look for career opportunities which would provide all these three, or the intersection of these three. And then while during that time, I even went to a trek. So before that, I had done so many Sahyadri treks and even Himalayan treks, and I had been on a trek with India Hikes before. And while I was deciding what I really wanted to do in life, my mother only pushed me to go for a trek. She said that go for a trek, go solo. You will have that mind space and that time to think what is it that you really want to do. And that is when I went on a trek. I very vividly remember that entire trek. I went to Harkidun with India Hikes,
Mhm.
and Nitesh was my trek leader, and we had a wonderful trek, awesome trek. We had the best team. The weather unfortunately went bad, but we still enjoyed, and we did the trek as much as we could. And on the last day of the trek, he asked if anybody of us wanted to be or wanted to volunteer to be a trek leader and the guide for a day.
Mhm.
And I thought that was extremely exciting. And then I raised my hand and I said, I want to be the trek leader. And then two other people said that they wanted to be the guides.
Mhm.
And we thought it was just going to be a fun thing to do.
Mhm.
But we realized that our own guides and our own trek leader, Nitesh himself, all of them left the group and they went ahead and they reached the base camp by themselves, and they let us handle the entire group and get everybody down. So we basically had the whole responsibility to manage the group and make sure that everybody comes back safely.
Mhm.
And till that point, I was anyway fascinated with the role of a trek leader. But when I got to do by myself, I realized the amount of power that I have as a trek leader to influence so many people. I
Mhm.
knew that as a trek leader, I would get to meet 20 people, almost 20 people every other week, or
Yeah.
even every week. And I would get to learn from them, but I would also get to influence them. And for me personally, I have had wonderful experiences on treks. And every time I have come back from a trek, I have realized so many things about myself. I have realized so many things about life in general. And I have come back with much more clarity about my goals, my whatever it is that I'm looking for. And that is something that I really wanted to give back. I wanted to be that person who would be the catalyst to for that change to happen in other people's lives. And I thought, trek leading was somewhat very close to the intersection that I was looking for. I was extremely passionate about trekking.
Mhm.
That had been part of my life since my childhood. And I thought that it was doing everything. It was ticking all the circles, and I really wanted to take it up. So by the time I came back from my trek, I had already decided in my head that I'm going to apply as a trek leader, and this is exactly what I want to do.
Mhm.
Not sure if in long term, but definitely for now, yes, this is something that I want to do. So and somehow my mother also guessed it, because when I came back and I told them that I wanted to talk to them and tell them how the experience was and what is it that I've thought about what I want to do next in my life. She somehow guessed it and she knew it, that I would come back with this sort of mindset.
Mhm.
I don't know how she guessed it or anything, but it was very clear to me after that trek, because I thought I could do much more as a trek leader. It was both ways. I could learn also so many things, because I was not very confident in speaking to people. I think the way I'm speaking to you right now, also, I wasn't this person at all. So I had those I had those inhibitions if if I should really take this up, because I didn't know if I would be really able to do that. But as I said, I knew that I would learn that eventually in the process of doing it. So I knew that I would gain those skills, and India Hikes is as an organization, I always looked up to them because I had done 4 treks with them. Even before joining India Hikes, I had done 4 treks with them, and I had seen how they work. I had seen the sort of culture they have. And even in the remote places where, say, vehicles can't reach, but the sort of team that they had built, I loved them all. So every time I went on a trek, the sort of people I met as India Hikes team members, there was a specific, a certain kind of continuity, or even just by looking at those people, you would know that oh, they are from India Hikes,
Hmm.
just because the sort of values that they had um, they had inculcated.
Hmm.
And India Hikes as an organization, I thought I really resonated with them, with their vision of making everybody trek because they really believe that it transforms people. The vision of making mountains cleaner and better, and and just being a better person by being at India Hikes. So as an organization, I loved India Hikes. So I had that respect for India Hikes even before thinking of taking up trek leading. I thought, okay, this is like a perfect thing that I could ever ask for. I have my passion of trekking, and then I'm getting whatever I want out of a workplace, and then the organization that I'm going to be associated with, I already love them for their values and their vision. So I thought this is the perfect place for me, and that is what gave me the confidence. I think doing it by myself for that one day, even if I knew that it was just a glimpse of what a
Hmm.
trek leader's job looks like, I somehow felt that this is where I belong. And that is when I decided to be a trek leader. And I came back and I told my parents, okay, this is what I want to do. So that is how the shift happened.
This this there is a parallel with the movie, if you have seen Nayak,
I haven't.
Anil Kapoor's
What is
movie.
it?
Where he's a reporter, and he gets in he's in he interviews a politician, and in that interview he asks him a lot of tough questions like, why is this not happening? And he says, why don't you become a CM for one day and run this state, and then you will realize. And then he says, okay, I'll do it. And then he becomes chief minister for one day, and then he does like a lot of transformative things. He does a really good job. And then later
Wow.
everyone is like, ah, you should run for elections. And then he actually becomes the chief minister. That's the climax of
It's very similar then.
it.
I
Very
did
similar.
not know this story. I'm not copying any story, okay? They might have copied my story.
Yeah, maybe.
So yeah.
But then after becoming a trek leader, how was your first uh experience leading? I will draw the parallel to the movie itself again, because when he actually becomes the chief minister, his first day is really hectic. He's like, oh, there are so many things which I didn't know when I did it for the first time. So how was your experience?
Oh, damn. It was very hectic and very rigorous. Too many things happening at the same time, too many feelings for me also, personally. Because so we are missing one bit of the story is when I really applied as a trek leader. And when I actually got in, there was a time gap of 1.5 years.
Oh.
So because I applied to be a trek leader, and I did not get in, and I had no clue why I did not get in, and I did not receive a response. So they did not even say that I hadn't gotten. They
Mm.
just did not they just did not get back to me, and I had no idea what was happening, because in my opinion, or in my head, I was thinking, oh, I'm a perfect fit for whatever their requirement is. I have done whatever they need me to do. And uh, in my head, I was like, I should have gotten selected. Why is this happening, and why are they not calling me back? And then later, me and my mother, we were going to go to Bangalore for some other course. And then that is when we decided to go to the office and visit them and understand what is it that I really need to do to strengthen my application so that I can really get in. And then we really visited the office. And that time, Arjun sir and ma'am, both of them were not there. So we met Swati. And then they said that we will review your application, and we don't know why it hasn't been reviewed or whatever the reason is. We will get back to you in a week or two. And a week passed, two passed, 3 weeks passed, nothing happened. And that is when I think COVID started or something like that, around the same time. So everything was closed, and they declared that they have stopped recruiting people.
Oh.
And I was thinking, oh no, now I don't have any chance of getting in. But I kept sending the emails, and same email again and again of my application and my resume and everything. Finally, in September, out of nowhere, I got an email saying that you have been invited for this process. So we want to take your application forward, and these are the next rounds. That whatever. But that, I think that happened only after 10 months of me sending them emails every now and then and just waiting without hearing back from them. So that was a difficult period because I was still working at HSBC, and I was clueless about what I wanted to do. And when I was sure that I wanted to take this up as of a trek leader role in India Hikes, they weren't getting back to me, and I did not know what is it that I need to do to get that position. So I think 10 months just passed by doing this and waiting. And when I finally got a call, I was actually doing a outdoor outdoor leadership course from National Outdoor Leadership School. So National Outdoor Leadership School is originally from the US, and they have their branches all over the world. And they have one in Ranikhet in India. So I was doing their course, 21-day course of outdoor leadership, because I again wanted to see by myself if I am a good fit at doing all of this. So of course I wanted to learn outdoor leadership through that their course, but I also wanted to check if I was the right fit. So I was doing that course, and only when I got back, I could reply to them, and they said, "You know what? Come tomorrow and join us." So that happened very quickly, and I said, "No, I can't. I have to go back. I have to resign and then serve my notice period, and then only I can come back." So that took another 3 months, and then finally, after 1.5 years of waiting, I finally got into India Hikes. So coming back to your question, I think
Wow.
for me, the first day at India Hikes was very overwhelming because I had waited for it for a
Yeah.
very long time.
Mhm.
But at this, and for me, that time I also met Arjun sir, Sandhya ma'am, and all the other people at the office, who I had watched all of their videos. I used to follow them on Instagram, and I was such a big fan of India Hikes. I still am even today, but I was a big fan of India Hikes at that time, and I was very excited to be there, but very overwhelmed, very nervous. Also because I was coming out of my home for the very first time. I
Oh.
always stayed at my home, even for my schooling. It happened in Pune. My engineering, even my first job, everything was in Pune. So I hadn't been away from my parents and my family for such a long time. And when I reached to Bangalore, and when I went to the office, the first thing that I realized that, oh no, now I don't know when will I go back home, or when will I get to go back home. And that struck me. And for I think for first few days I was quite homesick. I didn't know how to react to all of this. So for me, for my first time at India Hikes was filled with so many emotions, so many feelings. So excitement, nervousness, overwhelmed, everything at once. So that was it for me.
Mhm. And coming back to trek leading again, do you remember your first trek as a trek leader? How was that experience?
It was horrible. In my in my opinion, it was horrible because it also has a story linked to it, because I wasn't really supposed to lead that trek. It was my
Okay.
mentor who I was supposed to shadow. So we had two treks back to back, and I was And I was assigned, so we finished our 1.5 months of training. So 15 days of training in Bangalore office, our headquarters, and then 3 weeks in on the slope. So we call it the slope. It's basically our base camps, which are situated in different parts of the Himalayas, from
Mhm.
where the treks begin. And those are the places where we call slopes. And whenever we are not going on treks, that is where we reside. So we had 3 weeks of training at slope on the slope, and after that, all of us. So we were about a group of 10 people, 11 people, who were undergoing this training. And after that training, we were sent out to different treks. And I was assigned a trek in Dayara Bugyal. So I was assigned a family batch, and that is
Okay.
something that usually people never get to lead as their first ever trek, because in family groups you have different families coming together with
Okay.
their children. So
Mhm.
parents with young children, and
Oh.
children as young as 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So they're very young kids, and
Mhm.
their parents. So this is the sort of family group that we usually have. And I was, as my first ever trek, I was assigned a family group. This was
Mhm.
very unheard of at that time. Even now, nobody gets to lead a family group in the first group. But I
Mhm.
think because they knew my family, they knew my own background, and they knew that I had been part of India Hikes treks before, and all of that, whatever they thought, I was given this opportunity.
Mhm.
And for the first two treks, I was supposed to lead a senior trek leader. So he was my mentor.
Mhm.
And first trek, I completely shadowed him. So I did not really do much. My job was just to see how he leads the trek. And I was very chill. I was very cool. I was thinking, okay, next trek also I'll get to shadow him, because that was the plan. And
Mhm.
then and the third trek would be my own trek, where I will be leading my own trek. But once we came back from the first trek, he said, okay, tomorrow another group is coming. So instead of me, you take the group. And I was like, what? I don't think that I'm ready for this. And I have so many things I haven't prepared. I don't know how to give the briefing and how to conduct activities and whatever. I'm not ready for this. And then he just sort of pushed me to do it. He said, I'll also be there. I will shadow you this time. You lead the team. So
Mhm.
just before a day that my team was arriving at the base camp, I got to know that I was leading the trek. And that was a big shock, big surprise for me. And with whatever preparation that I could fill in that one particular day, I went for it. And I finished my briefing, and 20 people are looking at you, and you need to gain their uh, you need to show that confidence to gain that credibility, and you just have to be the leader that they would believe that they would really trust on. So
Mhm.
this is what a briefing usually is, and to me it was a big deal, because as I said, I was not very confident. I could not even think about speaking in front of 20 people, and leave speaking for 45 minutes. So that was a very big deal. And I remember there were four trek leaders at the base camp with a slope manager. A slope manager is basically the CEO of that particular base camp. So he
Mhm.
was also there, and all of them were sitting in my briefing at the backside. And I was, just, I don't, right now when I think about it, I feel that I gave such a bad briefing, because everything was mixed up. There was no continuity between what I was speaking. So many times I fumbled, and so many times I was blank about what to say next. But it just happened. This was just the start of the trek. What happened on the trek was is a different story. But I very clearly remember uh, my trekkers being extremely happy with me, and they were very inspired, and they had beautiful things to say about me. But
Mhm.
after completing the trek, when we came back, and when I was having a reflection session with my mentor, I started crying, and I said, I don't think that I can do this. It is just my first trek, but I don't think I'm capable of doing this. I started doubting all the decisions that I had ever made. So I thought that I would never get better, and I would not have a good career at India Hikes.
Mhm.
But that was just the start. And I think that was the most horrible trek that I have ever led till now, but still holds a very special place in my heart. I think there are so many people who are still in touch with me from that group.
Oh.
That first ever trek that I led.
Mm-hmm.
So many parents and even kids, they keep calling me. So I had so if from a third person point of view, I think it went decent. It was actually good, but for me personally, I thought it was horrible.
How about the point of view of your family members or your loved ones who don't know what is happening for those 7, 8 days or the long period of time where they don't know you are doing well. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously your parents have supported you for such a long time,
yeah,
but when they get to know the uncertainties of the
yeah.
distance, how difficult is that and how did you manage that part?
It is very difficult, especially when they get to see all the news on television. It becomes even more difficult, especially when we are not reachable,
Yeah.
and our phones are not working. Uh, so my parents were relatively okay with all of that because they themselves had gone on treks, so they
Mm.
knew what to expect. But for people, I know so many people whose parents don't even know what living in the Himalayas is like. They
Mm.
haven't seen Himalayas, they haven't been on treks. And that makes it so much more difficult for them to imagine what their child is going through at that point of the time. So this incident happened so recently, I think not even recently, last to last year, if I'm not wrong, there was this avalanche that happened on Draupadi Ka Danda, and a group of advanced mountaineering students from Nehru Institute of Mountaineering, they were on that expedition. And a lot of them went missing, and a lot of them lost their lives in that incident. So I was at Dara Bugyal. Okay, every story I'm saying that I was at Rethel at Dara Bugyal, but that is what it is. That is how it
That
went.
is your second
So
home.
yeah, it really became my second home. There was a time when our local staff said, "आप यहाँ का वोटर कार्ड बना लो, आप अगले इलेक्शन में यहाँ वोट करना, आप हमेशा यहीं पे आके रहते हो।" मैं कि हाँ क्या करें अभी? So that also happened, but I was at Rethel, and you can actually see Draupadi Ka Danda right in front of you from our base camp. So
Oh.
uh, it's not that close, but you can still see it. So
Mm.
we could see a lot of helicopters coming and going in, and later we got to know that this thing had happened. And so many of my relatives, actually not my parents immediately, because they knew that base camp is quite far from these
Mm.
big peaks, and on our usual treks, these sorts of incidents don't usually happen. Um, and they knew that I was at the base camp and everything was fine. But a lot of my relatives actually started calling my parents, asking if I was okay. And because that, I remember that incident that really shook everything. People were very, very scared, and because a lot of people were involved, a lot of students were involved in that incident, and it was really sad. It was not, it was a difficult time. But a lot of my relatives were worried. So for them, they don't know, right, what is happening over there. It becomes very difficult for them also.
Mm.
Uh, but it's also the reverse, because as trek leaders, we are out of coverage area for 5 days, 6 days. And when we come back from a trek and we feel, I remember for those initial treks when I would come back, especially from Hamta Pass, because over there you don't have any network
Mm.
till the time you come back to Manali, and 6 days are passed and you feel like, oh, the world has changed, so many things have changed, and I don't know what's happening in the world right now.
Mm.
So that sort of feeling, you definitely get that feeling. And you don't know what is happening back at home. So like our parents don't know what is happening with us, we also don't know what is happening with them.
Yeah.
And when I was on a trek to the Arabugyal, um, I this something like this happened. It was my grandfather who actually got paralysis attack when I was on a trek, and I had no idea that something like this had happened. And randomly, when I received a message, when I accidentally came in the network zone near our base, near our campsite on the trek, I received messages, and over there somebody had written in our family group that they have left for Pune, and they were asking in which room number is he in and everything. And I had no clue that something like this has happened. And I was very scared. And then I called my father. And then he told me what all had happened. And then he said that because you were on a trek, we did not tell you. We didn't want to disturb you. And we felt that you would not be able to I mean, it would get difficult for you to continue the trek. So we did not tell you, but we were anyways going to call you. And he was quite serious at that time. My grandfather. So he was in the ICU. He was admitted in the ICU, and the doctors had told us that it's quite a severe attack, and then his condition was quite severe, quite serious. And I was very shocked. I still remember, I very, very clearly remember where I was standing and from where I called and all of that. And I just took 2 minutes to gather myself and my feelings. And I told my father, and then we mutually decided, we said that once you come back from the trek, we will decide if you want to come home, you can come home. We will think about all of that. But for me, it was a big shock at that point, because I was not in the zone. I was not even thinking of any of these things, and I had no of course it was very sudden. Even for my family, it was very sudden, but me being there, it was even more shocking. And I felt helpless. I couldn't do anything. And I wanted to come and help them out and be part of all of this, but I couldn't do that. So I just decided to continue the trek. I went back to the dining tent that we have, and I just started, and I sort of conducted a small session for my trekkers. And nobody ever got to know that something like this had happened with me. So it was quite difficult for me to have those things separate, because I, of course, didn't want to ruin my trekker's experience for whatever I was going through. Anyways, I wouldn't be able to do anything being there uh, until I come back home. So I just decided to have those things compartmentalized and then dedicate myself towards the trek first. And then once I finished the trek, I was constantly in touch with my family, and then eventually I decided to come home. So I came home. I was here for 15, 20 days, and then everything happened. But at that point of the time, it definitely gets very, very challenging. You don't know what is it that you might get to know after you come back from a trek. So there were a few times when I would suddenly have this thought that I'm on the trek right now, and after 4 days, I will get in get in the network zone, and I would not know what news will I receive after coming back. So there were a few days when I had this thought, especially after that incident that happened with me. But it's just a part of it. I mean, you have to deal with it. If you have to do all of this, then this is just a part of it. And then we also have our backend team where our parents can connect with them, or even we can connect with them and tell them if there is an emergency, they would definitely reach out to us. So we have that. So I know, so all of us would be assured that if something doesn't go well or something happens, both of us, we will be informed. Me as a trek leader, and my parents, my family. So that assurance was there, and we had that confidence that whatever happens, the news will be shared with us. So that kept us sane during that time.
Listening to these stories, I think all these experiences just end up making you more strong and more, I would say, more confident in crunch situations, not just in the mountains, but in life. If, as we started off this podcast with, that if I go in the rain, then I know that
Yeah,
I've been through so much more difficult situations that I can handle these small situations very easily.
absolutely. And that is the sort of confidence I feel one needs to just move ahead in their lives.
Yeah.
Whatever you plan to do, if you know that हो जाएगा, या फिर you will sail through this,
Yeah.
that is all we need, right? be it your exams or be it something related to your job or even in any relationships. This is exactly what you need. And I think my time at India Hikes has definitely shaped my personality and has made me a better person. So yeah.
Yeah. And coming to your life again, as you said, climbing up and coming down, and you have now left trekking and you're going for another mountain, which is MBA. So, how was that shift, and what what was the thing that you thought about for leaving trekking and taking up this next mountain?
Yeah. I haven't left trekking. I still
I
go
mean,
for trek.
tech leading.
I have left
I'm
my trekking
sorry.
career.
I'm
No
sorry.
problem. I have left my trekking career for
Yeah.
now. I
Mhm.
don't know if I will take it up later in life. I might not. But these 2.5 years have been wonderful years of my life, and they've taught me so many things. They've completely changed me as a person, or not changed but shaped me as a person. And I thought that it was time for me to explore more and see if there is anything else also that excites me. Because when I thought, say 10 years after today, I didn't see myself doing what I was doing.
Mhm.
I wanted something, I wanted to do something else and explore more. And possibly later, if I want to, I can always come back to the outdoors. So outdoors as an industry will always be there, and it's such a niche industry right now, which is what made me feel that I don't want to limit my future possibilities
Mhm.
by being in such a niche industry and continuing in that particular industry. Um, so I wanted to explore more, and I always wanted to study. I always wanted to do my masters. Even back after my engineering, I always wanted to go for my masters, but I was at that time I was just not sure in which subject should I actually go ahead and do my masters. But now I thought, if I have to study and do my post graduation, probably this is the right time um, to do that, when I still have all the favorable conditions that I could ask for in terms of my family support or anything. I thought this was the right time to do it. And then I can always experiment and see what excites me and where is it that I am a good fit, and then try out things and just go ahead and see what lies ahead in my path. So that is when I decided to move on from India Hikes, from my trekking career. And then when it came to deciding what exactly is it that I want to do as my master's, I think since the year before, I was researching about MBA, and because I realized after doing trek leading, I faced so many different situations where I was developed as a leader. And I was actually managing people, which is a very important management skill. And leadership, I gained so many leadership lessons that one can not really learn unless they do it practically. So many people learn it theoretically, but I had the chance to learn it practically by going through those experiences. And that is when I realized that this is something that I enjoy doing. I like to be a leader. Where initially I always wanted to be a follower. I wanted to be a follower of somebody, and I would be very happy doing that. But only when I joined India Hikes and became a trek leader and kept doing that for a long time, I realized that I really enjoy being a leader. And of course there's so much that I have to learn, but that is what I wanted to continue even in my further career. And one thing though was very clear, that I didn't want to go back to IT and software engineering. So something related to management and strategy roles and decision making roles. So that excited me a lot, because even at India Hikes, because it's quite a small company compared to other companies, especially compared to HSBC where I was working. At India Hikes, we had a lot of freedom to do whatever we wanted to.
Mhm.
If I decide to do a certain thing in a certain way, I just have to ask my mentor, sometimes even not, and do it and then report saying that I did this and it worked, and I feel we should do this, we should not do this, whatever it is. So freedom of work, there was a lot of freedom of work, and that is something I really enjoyed. And I could see that I enjoyed doing that bit, which I couldn't do earlier. So I wanted to continue that and take that up. So I thought of doing an MBA because my parents and my other family members, all of them are entrepreneurs. They all have their small firms and they have been doing that for years. Not just my parents, my uncle, auntie, even my grandparents, both the sets of my grandparents. All of them have been entrepreneurs. So I have that background of entrepreneurship since my childhood, and I've only seen that. So that of course excited me, and I thought this was the time to climb another mountain. So that is what made me switch my career.
Mhm. The freedom of choosing anything and trying out anything, as you said, I think that has what been your career, where you have tried things
Yeah,
to know what to do and if you like it. And I think that is really inspiring because I remember I heard it somewhere that how do you know if you like bowling or if you like batting or if you like fielding or keeping? The best way to know it is to go out there and play and try it out. And I think that's what
yeah.
you are doing and you keep on doing. So I think that is really
Mm,
inspiring. And thank you for sharing all
thank
these
you.
journeys and experiences. And I learned a lot from this, and I'm sure those who listen to this will learn a lot as well. Thank you, Swarida, for being part of this podcast.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun speaking about it. It was very, very exciting. It just took me back to old days and my trek leading days. Not even trek leading, even before that, you took me back to my childhood days. And it was a wonderful conversation. I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank
And I
you.
just consider myself to be extremely privileged to have that freedom of doing what I want to do, because I know that a lot of people want to do that, but they don't have that sort of support. And that is when I feel that I'm very lucky and I'm very privileged to have been doing that. So now that I know that I'm privileged or I have that support, why not just use it and try out different things? So, yeah, that is what it is. Thank you so much. I loved it. I had a lot of fun. Mm.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us on Himalayan Diaries from Unboxing Stories. I'm your host Ojas. Together with Shivam Hasurkar, we are the creators of Unboxing Stories. Remember, every step in the mountains tells a story, and we are here to bring them to you. If you are inspired to start your own trekking adventure, please remember that these are not just leisure activities, but true adventure sports. It's crucial to learn, prepare, and take all necessary safety measures before embarking on your journey. Your safety is as important as your adventure. If you have enjoyed this episode, do share it with your friends and family. Please make sure to follow us and leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. Tune in next time as we continue to unbox more stories from the Himalayan Diaries. Until then, keep moving forward.